My name is Emma. My husband, Lucas, and I have been married almost 2 years. We originally met through our work, started dating soon after we met each other. In our second year of dating, Lucas to me, I said yes because I'd longed for a family, but also I was already 32 years old when he proposed. My friends and colleagues around me are gradually getting married, and I've been feeling a little rushed. I loved Lucas, and I was sure that marrying him, I would be able to build a family with him because he was always kind and cheerful. However, about 6 months before we married, my husband's father, the man who would have been my father-in-law, passed away. He had been suffering from a chronic illness, and I heard he was not in a very good condition. At the time, we had already started planning our wedding, and my husband was both surprised and upset. After discussing it with my husband's family, we decided to go ahead with wedding as planned. But I guess the shock of losing a family member was still too much for them. Lucas was busy with his work, but he kept back to his in-laws' house because my mother-in-law was very upset after her husband's death. She decided to move back to her hometown. Lucas was worried about her too. I had seen her a few times, but after her husband died, she couldn't even eat. So my husband visited his parents' house every day to take care of her. I was also worried about my mother. Sometimes I would go with my husband, but my mother-in-law was in a rough condition, and it was difficult for her to talk to me. 1 month before our wedding, my husband proposed to me.
If things continue as they are, my crazy, I'm thinking of moving in with her, get married. So what do you think?
To be honest, I didn't know what to. It's not that I don't like my mother, it's just that she doesn't like me. I know that my husband is worried, and has feelings for her. But it's a different story when you have to move in and live with in-laws. Let me think about it, okay? I told and asked him to give me a few days about it. I talked to my parents and thought about what I should do. As a result, I concluded that living with my mother-in-law would be the best way for me to spend my days with my husband, whom I love very much. To be honest, I'm not so sure if I'm the idea, but even if I start a new life with my husband, he will continue to worry about my mother-in-law. And if my husband has to go to his in-laws' house as often as he does now, even after marriage, I thought it would be better for us together. My husband was very happy when I moved in with his mother.
Thank you so much. Mom will be very...
His face lighted up. It made me happy. In fact, when I went to my parents' house before the wedding, my mother said to me, "I'm really sorry, Emma. You have to," me all of a sudden. "But thank you. I'm glad you're going son's wife." That's what she said to me. I knew that my mother-in-law was a person, and because she raised my husband, Lucas was a wonderful person. So I wasn't too worried at this time. I didn't know that my life with my mother-in-law was about to start. A few days after we visited our in-laws, we had a successful wedding ceremony with the blessings of many people, husband and wife. The next day, we began to prepare my in-laws' house in earnest. I was also working, so I was busy. But after we moved in with my in-laws, my mother-in-law became cheerful day by day. She always prepared meals for us because she knew we were both working. She also does the shopping for us on a regular basis.
Mom is getting so much better now. It's hard to be depressed when you have a life like this.
My husband seemed happy saying that. Seeing such a happy husband, I could not help but begin to smile. One day, after about 2 years of smooth cohabitation, it was a sudden event. I happened to take a weekday off to paid vacation. I usually leave the housework to my mother-in-law, but that day I decided to do it myself. As I was preparing for lunch, she suddenly appeared from behind.
Oh, thanks, Emma. I'll help you with something too.
It's okay. I always leave it to you. Please. let me handle it today.
Oh, really? I'd be happy to then.
While chatting with my mother-in-law as friendly as ever, I prepared luncheon. And when it was ready, I put it on and we sat down to eat. Then my mother-in-law opened her mouth.
Listen, Emma, this may not be the best time to ask, but I wonder if you can have a baby yet?
Excuse me.
She suddenly asked me a question I thought I'd be asked. The side dish I was holding on slipped from between the fork. Seeing me like this, she continued.
Well, you've already been married for 5 years, and you still can't even have your child?
That's what she said, and I was at. It's not that we don't want children, they just haven't happened yet.
Well, Mother, they say that children are a gift, and I'm letting my timing take care of itself.
When I replied with a smile, my mother-in-law's face instantly turned grim.
Timing? What are you talking about? You have to have children while you do, you understand? You don't want to give birth to when you're older, do you?
Saying that, she put down her fork at me.
It's not right that you can't have a single child after being married for over a year.
She told me firmly. Maybe my mother-in-law does have an attitude problem. I've always had irregular cycles. I've never really paid much attention to the details of the story. My mother-in-law told me that there might be something wrong with me, and I began to think about it. As a result, Lucas and I decided to fertility test together during his off. I was very anxious inside during the interview. It turned out that my body had a core that made it difficult for me to see child. I was not sure what to do, but after consulting with Lucas, we decided to share this to my mother-in-law.
May I have a word with you?
After dinner, we decided to tell her, "What do you want to talk about?" With my husband by her side, my moth remained in her usual gentle mood, didn't feel the pressure I felt the day, but I couldn't start a conversation knowing it wasn't good news. Then my husband opened his mouth and
Maybe we won't be able to have it until later. And in the worst case scenario, we'll be able to have a baby.
Then my mother-in-law's eyes widened at her husband's words, and she said,
Wait a minute. What are you talking? Are you kidding me?
We've been tested, and it turns out that Emma is constitutionally incapable of conceiving a child.
I continued to feel awkward. My mother-in-law was staring at me. I could feel it, even though I didn't want to.
Is it true, Emma?
My mother-in-law asked me as if I had replied.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That was all I could do that day. By next day, my hell began. My mother-in-law, who had been so kind to me, started to ignore me. But for some reason, my mother-in-law eating alone.
Please, don't eat my food without my permission. There's no portion for...
That's what she told me when I tried to prepare my own portion. If I tried to make my own meal, my mother-in-law would say I was in the way. I couldn't talk back, so I ended up at a deli and grabbed some sandwiches before work. One day, before going to bed, my husband said to me,
Emma, I know you're busy, but could you please do your chores a little better?
What?
Don't let my mom do all the work. I will do all the housework for you. Besides, my wardrobe is too messy, Leno. Can you put my cloths and stuff more?
I never knew what that meant. I always do laundry for myself and my husband, and I'm the one who puts them in my wardrobe. But every time I put it in there, I neatly and put it in neatly.
I even folded them yesterday, do.
But he never listens to me.
Then look at it later. It's a mess.
With that, he went to bed. I looked in his wardrobe and saw a real mess, a complete change from what he had worn before. What's this? Who would do such a thing? You don't even have to think about it. My mother-in-law is the only one who's alone all day, but I thought maybe it just happened messed up when my husband was taking. I decided to wait and see. But the next day, Lucas told me some never thought I'd hear.
Emma, are you harassing my mom?
I was so confused because I had no he was talking about.
Don't play dumb with me. You broke up today, didn't you?
Well, she dropped it herself. I didn't touch it.
It was the day my mother-in-law's favorite mug broke. While I was hanging up clothes, I heard a rattling sound coming from inside the house, and my mother was lamenting about it. But for some reason, my husband didn't believe me.
How come you did such a thing, no? The mug was her favorite.
He blamed me. My husband doesn't believe me, even repeatedly tell him I didn't do it. On the contrary, he takes my mother's side without any proof and keeps accusing me of doing it.
Why do you always believe what yours says? I told you I didn't do it, and I didn't do anything to your waist either. If anyone's gonna make a mess, it's Mom.
I'm the one being harassed. Why can that? I got emotional and told him like that. Then my husband's face turned red.
That's enough. How much more can your mother look bad?
That's what he yelled at me. I froze on the spot, having never heard him say such a thing before. Then my husband sighed and said,
Whatever. I'm disappointed in you, your parents for a while, and cool.
Then he walked out of the room. Cool off. Me? I honestly didn't know what was going on, but it was true that I didn't want to live in the house anymore. I went back to my parents' house with only the essentials. My parents were surprised when I suddenly came home, but when I told them what had happened, they said I didn't have to go back. The stress of being away from my in-laws' house was rapidly disappearing. I was commuting to work from my parents' house and living a relatively good life. About a month later, I got a text message from my husband.
Emma, I know you want to come home. I forgive you if you apologize to me.
The moment I saw that email, I felt a rush of anger towards my husband and mother that I had almost forgotten about. Why should I apologize? Why do I have to be the bad guy?
Okay, I'm going home tomorrow. I'll be back.
The next day, I went to my parents' house to take revenge on my husband's mother-in-law. After work, I went to the gym for the first time in a month and pressed the intercom. And my mother-in-law answered, I'm not sure. My husband had not come home from W. As soon as she saw me, she started to cry.
I'm so glad you finally came home, wife. Have you reflected on what you did?
She smiled at me as if she was on me inside. I was taken to the living room, but as expected, my mother-in-law's ranting didn't stop until my husband returned.
I heard you told Lucas that it was... How could he believe that? You're just a stranger to us. You've the way from the beginning, you know.
I wanted to yell at her, but I held it in until my husband came home. He came home a few minutes later.
Emma, did you apologize to her?
That was the first thing he said.
No, I didn't. There's nothing to apologize for.
When I said that, my mother-in-law's husband stormed into the room.
If that's the case, why did you come?
I was trying to get you to come back with us.
I took a deep breath and said,
Thank you for everything you've done. That's what I came here to say.
My husband and mother-in-law were speechless with disbelief. I took the divorce papers out of held them out to my husband.
I've had enough of playing Family Why too. Let's go back to being strangers.
When I said that, Lucas got angry with his face turning red.
Of course then. Let's do that right.
Then he got desperate, signed the divorce papers, and pushed them on me.
That's enough. Get the hell out of you, trashy wife. You just harassed so much.
I laughed and laughed in response.
What's so funny?
I'm sorry, it's just so stupid. You think you're right about your mother?
Lucas was upset when I said that, and
What? Of course, she's right.
then I showed him a video. The screen was blacked out, but it recorded my mother-in-law's outburst towards me.
What's up with that?
My mother-in-law's face turned pale as she listened to it.
Hey, what the hell is this?
He asked his mother, but I answered instead.
I've heard a lot of abusive words from my mother. So I've been making a video whenever alone with her ever since I had the...
Then why didn't you show it to me earlier and this wouldn't have happened?
I'm so disappointed in Lucas, who has blamed me for his own mistake.
How funny. If I hadn't shown it to, wouldn't have believed me, right? We are husband and wife, and you didn't intervene or try to solve the problem. You only took your mother's side.
When I said that to him, he fell silent and turned his head down.
By the way, I didn't do the wardrobe either. I'm sure your mother's fingerprints over the place.
When I said that, he huffed and said, "I'm not a fan of your attitude."
Mom, please tell me she's lying.
He confirmed it to her with a pale. As expected, my mother-in-law was not impressed with the word police. She didn't deny what she had done.
So, I'm gonna say goodbye now.
As I was about to leave, my husband called out from behind me.
Wait. Emma, I'm sorry. Please, please me.
He began to string together lines that only ever seen in a comic book. But my feelings have not changed.
Be good to your favorite mother.
With that, I left my in-laws. After that, my husband contacted me a while, but I ignored all of them. I even hired a lawyer. I sued my ex-husband and my mother for alimony, claiming emotional distress. The case would go to court, but it wouldn't make any difference. I was able to get them to pay me an amount of money. I don't know what my ex-husband and mother-in-law are doing now, and I'm not interested in that. I now rent an apartment near my pair house, and I am living a much more life than before. I realized that marriage is not something to be rushed into, and that you should marry only after you know your partner's family properly. From now on, I would like to make it my reflection and try to be a better person.